Hello, how's it going? Today, we're covering the Guardian Aegwynn and also Liu Lang and the Wandering Isle. Probably absolutely no connection between those two things, but still. Let's go! Dalaran. For many years, this city has remained safe due to the Guardians of Tirisfal. One of the last Guardians to serve was a man named Scavel, or Scavel, or Scavel. Let's go with Scavel. At the end of his 100-year tenure, he'd not actually found a suitable candidate to replace him. The Council of Tirisfal, worried that they may be without a Guardian for years or even decades, asked Scavel to remain in his position. At first, he was like, "You what, mate?" But he ultimately agreed. The century of service was only tradition, not law, after all. Also, his relationship with the Council was pretty strong. Years passed before Scavel finally found a group of apprentices that might succeed him. Among them, a human woman named Aegwynn. She was the most skilled and dedicated of the prospects, so the Council eventually bestowed the honour of guardianship on her with Scavel's blessing, and she got to work. Aegwynn was pretty good at guardianing, but she was also stubborn and bullheaded in her relations with the Council. She had a deep-seated mistrust of authority figures which put her at odds with them. They often tried to give her recommendations and advice on how to be a Guardian and she'd be like, "Nah, sod off." But this didn't trouble the Council too much. Her capability and effectiveness as a Guardian far outweighed the fact that she was a bloody nuisance. Near the end of her time as Guardian, she sensed something dark stirring in the icy lands of Northrend. She travelled to the distant continent and discovered a pack of demons feeding on the arcane energies of blue dragons. She immediately went to Wormrest Temple and said to the dragons, "Could you maybe do what you're supposed to be doing and protect the world from evil? If it's not too much to ask, of course, you bunch of jerks." Led by Alexstrasza, several of the dragonflights agreed that they should probably do something, and together they staged an ambush near the skeletal remains of Galakrond. The demons fell into Aegwynn's trap. The Guardian and her dragon mates overwhelmed the Legion's minions, but they had no idea what was coming next. The skies darkened, a monstrous demonic form emerged upon the battlefield, Sargeras. However, it wasn't actual Sargeras, because if it was, then this would pretty much be the end of Warcraft lore, because everyone would have died. It was the Avatar of Sargeras, meaning a tiny portion of Sargeras' cosmic power. Even as a tiny nugget of Sargeras, he radiated strength and fury. He unleashed his terrible might on Aegwynn, intent on completely obliterating the cow. Aegwynn didn't hesitate to fight back. The following battle was the most difficult she'd ever faced. With a final flurry of spell work, Aegwynn somehow managed to win. Or did she? Completely unaware that she had some Sargeras inside her, she gathered Sargeras' broken form and sealed it away. She considered many locations but decided on a part of Soramar that had been lost to the depths of the ocean due to the Sundering. Pre-Sundering, the Highborn, led by Elissander, who I spoke about in a previous video, had created a series of enchanted seals that would nullify whatever evil still lingered in Sargeras' avatar. So she buried the Demon Lord's broken body, and that's the end of her story for now. Just to reiterate, she has some Sargeras inside her. Anywho, we're off to Pandaria. Apart from the Mantid cycle, which I've also already talked about in a previous video, the Pandarans lived in relative peace. They were completely isolated from the rest of the world due to the thick mists that shrouded their domain. Most Pandaran believed the rest of the world had been destroyed by the Sundering, but not Liu Lang. Raised on a small ranch in the Valley of the Four Winds, he'd often wander the cliffs overlooking the sea and think to himself, what's out there? His curiosity led him to make a bold decision. He would set out on a fantastic sea voyage to discover once and for all what has happened to the outside world. His fellow Pandaran thought this was the most ridiculous thing they'd ever heard, pointed at him and laughed. Liu Lang didn't care. He gathered a few meagre supplies, I'm going to say colouring pencils, a banana and a spare pair of tighty whities, jumped on a small sea turtle named Shen-zin Su and sailed off through the mists. Time passed with no word from Liu Lang, so the rest of the Pandarans thought, he probably died, and carried on with their business. 5 years later, he did return. He told strange tales of mysterious lands and weird people on the other side of the sea. He gathered more supplies, and he set out once again, this time not alone. Shen-zin Su had grown quite a bit, and Liu Lang's tales had inspired one whole Pandaran to join him. Her name was Shenizhi, and she later became Liu Lang's wife, which doesn't surprise me. When you find yourself living with literally one other person on a turtle, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to marry them or the turtle. Every 5 years, Liu Lang would return. Each time, the turtle had grown even bigger, and more Pandaran would join, and then they'd probably marry. This tradition continued for decades, until the great turtle had grown to the size of a giant island. Mountains and lakes formed on the back of Shen-zin Su's shell. Say that 3 times fast. Shen-zin Su shell on the seashore. Villages sprang up across his back. Eventually, the Pandarans dwelling on a turtle named their unique refuge the Wandering Isle. On his final voyage, the elderly Liu Lang fell into a deep sleep, from which he never awoke, which means he died. His spirit merged with the sea turtle himself. His tradition of bold exploration did not die with him. The Pandaran of the Wandering Isle would carry on his values for many centuries to come. And we're leaving it there! We're so close to the end of Volume 1, it's like 10 pages left, and 3 of those pages are pictures. Aegwynn has some Sargeras in her, there's some pandas living on a turtle, great stuff. In the next video, I'll be covering the vanishing of Aegwynn, and potentially the War of the Three Hammers. So, if you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed and come back on Friday. If you enjoyed this video, press the like button, talk to me in the comments, and all that's left to say is, thanks very much for watching, and see ya!